Here we go. Here we go. Checking the audio. Let's go. Let's go. What's up? All right, guys. So, if you're like me and if you completed AOC 2021, congratulations. I stumbled upon this awesome room there, and I've seen there's no walkthroughs, no tutorials, no nothing. A lot of people got stuck. So, if you're one of these people that got stuck, have no fear. I am here and I'll help you out as much as I can. So, without further ado, this is Phishing Emails 1. If you feel like this is boring, and it kind of is, it's a lot of reading, not a lot of working, in the last few tasks here, task 6 and 7, we'll be doing a little bit of work. But yeah, for those of you who want to stay with me throughout this reading and whatnot, I'll try to make it interesting for you. And if you don't, you're more than welcome to leave. So here we go. Um, Spam and phishing, usually super common social engineering attacks. And social engineering's phishing attack vectors can be a phone call, text message, or an email. In today's video and today's room, we'll be talking about phishing. So, the first email classified as spam dates back to 1978 and it's still thriving today in 2022. Phishing is a serious attack vector that you as a defender will have to defend against. An organization can follow all recommended guidelines when it comes to building a layered defense strategy. Still, all that it takes is an inexperienced and unsuspecting user within your corporate environment to click on a link or download and run a malicious attack, which may provide an attacker a foothold into the network. So, we are as strong as our weakest links. Um, Many products help combat spam and phishing, but realistically, these emails can still get through. When they do, as a security analyst, you need to know how to analyze these emails to determine if they're malicious or benign, which we'll be doing in this particular room. So, uh, we did start a VM. Let's go to task 2 and talk about the email address. It is only appropriate to start this room by mentioning the man who invented the concept of emails and made the @ symbol famous. The person responsible for the contribution the way we communicate today was Ray Tomlinson. The invention of email dates back to the 1970s for ARPANET. Some people have a very interesting story about it as being this weapon and whatnot. Look into it. 1970s, that's what I want you to remember for now. So 3 components of an email address: the user mailbox, the @ symbol, and the domain. So you have here an example: billy@johndoe.com. Billy being the user mailbox, at the @ symbol, and domain is johndoe.com. So let's look at our first question. Email dates back to what frame time? Like I said, 1970s. We have task number 2. Email delivery. I'll try, to do my best to explain. When there's certain key concepts, I'll try to explain, and I'll keep in mind that we're all beginners, right? I'll try to be as thorough as I can. So, a handful of protocols are involved with the magic that takes place when you send an email. By now, you should already know that certain protocols were created to handle specific network related tasks, such as email. So, 3 protocols that we'll be talking about in this room, which is SMTP, POP3, and IMAP. POP3 and IMAP, they're kind of similar but different at the same time, and I'll explain. Let's start with SMTP first. Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It is utilized to handle the sending of emails. POP3 and IMAP, responsible for transferring emails between a client and a mail server. So you might ask yourself, what is the difference in between POP3 and IMAP? So POP3 emails are downloaded and stored on a single device. Sent messages are stored on a single device from which the email was sent. Emails can only be accessed from a single device um, where the emails were downloaded to. If you want to keep the messages on the server, make sure the settings keep email on server is enabled, or all the messages are deleted from the server once downloaded to the single device's app or software. Now we're going to take a look at IMAP. So within IMAP, emails are stored on the server and can be downloaded on multiple devices. Sent messages are stored on the server. Messages can be synced and accessed across multiple devices. So you might be asking yourself, well, which one do I have? Well, let's just put it this way. Let's say you have a confirmation that your package has been delivered on Amazon from Amazon.com. You read it. You close your email app or your mail app on your phone, but then the email is still there. Therefore, you're using IMAP. Does that make sense? Who's using POP3? Well, if you don't want anybody to see what you have in your emails, you don't want to keep the email on the server as well, you want everything to be deleted, you can use POP3. For everybody else, the vast majority of people, we are using IMAP. They have a cute chart here to explain how the entire email process takes place from Alexa at janedoe.com. She wants to send an email to Billy at johndoe.com. Real quick, we'll go through it. So number one, we're going into the SMTP server for, you got it, transmitting email. That's right, it goes to the DNS server. DNS server goes back. So DNS server is basically determining where John Doe is located. What is it? What is the address associated with Billy at johndoe.com, and it translates it, sends it back to the SMTP server, then goes through a firewall, through the filter, over the internet, into another firewall, gets to the destination SMTP server. Then from here, it switches over to a POP3 or IMAP server, whichever one Billy uses. And then Billy hops onto his computer, accesses his email client, and gets the email. Now, each protocol has default ports and recommended ports. So for example, SMTP, it's port 25. There are a list of well-known ports, 1 to 1000. There are some ports like 25 that is associated with SMTP, but make no mistake, this doesn't necessarily have to be SMTP on port 25. It could be a very different service, which it is not within the means of this room, so we'll talk about that some different time. So we're going to the questions here. Which port is classified as secure transport for SMTP? That would be port 465. A simple Google search will reveal this answer to you. Then the next question is, what port is classified as secure transport for IMAP? Again, another simple search will reveal that 993 is the port associated with secure transport for IMAP. And what port is classified as secure transport for POP3? And that will be 995. Again, all you need to do is Google it. Very simple questions, very simple answers. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Let's get into the email headers. So now that we know how an email goes from point A to point B, let's get into email headers, email bodies. So basically, an email has an email header and an email body. The email header has information about the email, such as the email servers that relay the email, key concept relay the email. We'll see later why. And the email body, which is text and or HTML formatted text. The syntax for email messages is known as the Internet Message Format, or IMF. So let's look at a few elements of an email header, starting with the header fields. So from the sender's email address, subject, the email subject line, date, the date when the email was sent, and two, the recipient's email address. This is usually clearly visible in any email client. So this image right here, nothing special, nothing too crazy. You've seen this image a boat ton of times. This is how uh, an email field looks like, right? From, to, and the subject, right? So another method to obtain the same email header information and a lot more information together with that is by viewing the raw email details. So depending on your email client, whether on Yahoo Mail, Proton Mail, Gmail, you name it, you can view the raw message. So we do have an image here. You press the three dots right here. I believe this may be Gmail, I think, and you click in the view raw message. So what happens when you click view raw message? Well, all of this happens right here. You get details including IP addresses from the sender, return path, again, key concept, return path. We'll see why. Where does the email go back to if you reply to it? DKIM, we will talk about it in a different room. Let me know if you want me to make different rooms also. You have a text here that is gibberish, which means it is encoded. So clear text means it's text that we can read. Encoded text would be something like this. You are also getting an encoding specification with that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. It will be base 64. So they're telling us we can review this email sample and email samples directory on the desktop within the virtual machine. But for now, let's take a moment here. So we talked about this gibberish right here, which is a base 64 encoded message, right? So in order to do a decoding of this, we can do it in our own virtual machine box, in our Kali box. I'm personally planning to use the web app. It's nothing too crazy, nothing too special here. Also, we look here in this field, we have the DKIM signature, and you can see the encoding type is RSA SHA-256. And again, we have to pay attention to these details later on because we will have questions about it. I highly recommend you to follow this link right here and educate yourself a little bit more with this article from Media Temple right here, because we have a couple of questions here. What email header is the same as reply to? And that will be the return path, which we did have right here. Okay, return path is the same as reply to. Once you find the email sender's IP address, where can you retrieve more information about the IP? So say you have 43, 255, 56, 161. What would you do with this IP address? Well, if you want to find more information about it, you go to rn.net and then you find more information, right? Easy peasy. Again, all this information was in this link right here. Please check it out. We're moving on to the next task, which is task number 5, and we'll be talking about the email body. Email body is the part of an email which contains the text, plain or HTML formatted, the sender wants you to view. So here you have a text-only email. Hi John, I hope you're having a good weekend. Blah blah blah. That's it. Text only. What does it mean? Pretty much text only. Below is an example of an HTML formatted email. A message from Tryhackme, we see an image that was blocked. You have a few hyperlinks over here. So uh, HTML is the one element that makes it possible to add everything in this email. Uh, Again, if you want to see what is embedded in this HTML code, we can pretty much do what we did before to view the source code or view the raw format of the email. And we have a snippet of the HTML code shown below of this particular email right here. So let's take a look at it and see what we have here. A bunch of gibberish. Don't be scared about it. We're not going to go into HTML right now. You see all these things right here with /tr/t body. That is pretty much closing the line of code. It's just like opening and closing doors. So just think about it in those simple terms. When you open a door, you don't want to leave your apartment with an open door. You have to close it, right? Same as here, and right here, pay attention. The image, right? We do have the image class equals logo source equals https i.imgur.com ls blah blah blah. So that is the picture that got blocked, right? The image that got blocked. So in this specific email web client, Proton Mail has the option to switch back to HTML, which is called View Rendered HTML. So after you've seen your HTML code, you can see the rendered version of it. Again, they do say it will be different. Of course, it will be different when you're talking about Yahoo, Gmail, so on and so forth. So lastly, emails may contain attachments. Very, very important. The same premise applies. You can view an email's attachment from an email's HTML format or by viewing the source code. So let's look at a few examples below. The following example is an HTML formatted email from Netflix with an attachment. The web client is Yahoo. So you have here your friends at Netflix, blah, 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 questions, whatever, and a PDF attachment. Now, my question to you is it a PDF attachment just because it says it's a PDF attachment? Well, not necessarily. So how do we know that? How do we find out? Well, we're going back to our good friend source code, right? So let's view the attachment with the source code. So you see here a content type application / PDF name, very important, payment dash update ID dot PDF. Content transfer encoding base 64, right? Very important to know. That means this information, this gibberish right here, it is in base 64 format. So in order to see this in clear text, we can just base 64 this text right here, and we will get the information that's in there, right? For the above example, we can see headers associated with the attachment. Content type is application / PDF. Content disposition specifies it's an attachment. And the content transfer encoding tells us it's base 64 encoded. With the base 64 encoded data, you can decode it and save it into your machine. When interacting with attachments, proceed with caution and make sure you don't double click an email's attachment by accident. Header specific to content can be found in various locations within an email message source code, and they're not only associated with attachment. For example, content type can be text or HTML, and content transfer encoding can have other values such as 8-bit. Pretty much reiterating what I was saying earlier. So in the above screenshots, what is the URI of the blocked image? So we talked about this before, and we're going here to this HTML code, and we're going to this line of code here, image class, logo, source. So this is your answer right here. Awesome. And then in the above screenshots, what is the name of the PDF attachment? So we talked about this before, payment-updateid.pdf. That is your answer right there. Okay, so in the attached virtual machine, view the information in email to. Let's add another hour. Email2.txt and reconstruct the PDF using the base 64 data. So let's do that. Let's go up, show split view. Let's connect to our box here. Hopefully you guys can see that. And we have an email2.txt, and bam, what do we have here? A bunch of gibberish, right? Content type and all of that. So what we'll do, we'll go into CyberChef. So what is CyberChef? If you never heard about it, that is fine. That's why you're here. CyberChef basically encodes and decodes text like this, text like base64, SHA-256, MD5, so on and so forth. Was developed by some really smart people, and it is amazing that we have such a tool at our disposition, because this was not available just a few years ago. It is absolutely fantastic to have this tool at our disposal. And what I'm doing right now is I'm pretty much copying. I could have just, just Control A, Control C. Let's copy everything. Go into CyberChef. We have these filters right here. We have favorites and to base64, from base64, hex dump, URL decode, and we'll talk about everything else later. There's a ton of options here, and they had to be math geniuses to come up with all these formats and decoding options. So we'll do from base64, and the input, we will just paste everything here. Now, very important, very important here, you have to delete everything that is not base64, because even though CyberChef is an incredibly smart application, it will not know what exactly you want to decode, and it wants specific inputs for you to be extremely precise on what do you want the app to do with the code. So we still see here a ton of gibberish, which is fine, because there's another thing that we have to talk about, and we will hop on the command line for it right here. Okay, so let's do a quick ls. Let's do change directory, cd desktop, and then we'll go to email samples, ls, and then we'll do, there we go. So as I've said, we have to copy. What I'm doing here is I'm creating a new text file, and like I said, we have to leave only the base64 part in there, because CyberChef, as smart as it is, it's not gonna help us out in this particular scenario. So we're gonna save this, as email, let's say test.txt. Fantabulous. So we have that there. We have this here. We'll do another ls. And now email test.txt is all our base 64. So what we'll proceed in doing is to cat email2.txt, and then we'll pipe it into base 64 dash d, that stands from decode email test.txt into email test.pdf, and we're going to do cat email test.pdf, and we should have got our flag. Which, give me a second. There we go. So you might have a few questions. Why a PDF? Well, as you see in the command here, what we did right here is we catted the contents of email2.txt, so our text document with just the base 64 in it, we piped it, so we sent it. A pipe is pretty much like send it to base 64 dash d, which means decode. Decode what, you might ask? Decode email test.txt, so this file, right, we're decoding it with a dash d option, and give me the output. The greater than sign is the output into email test.pdf, because as you can see, if you look right here, it is a trick question. What is the text within the PDF? So that's why the PDF output for the file, and you saw the file right there, the PDF attachment that was here, benign attachment. Okay, hopefully that makes sense for you guys. Okay, that was your flag. So we will go then to task number 6. So now that we covered general concepts regarding emails and how they travel from sender to recipient, we can now talk about how this method of communication is used for nefarious purposes. Different types of malicious emails can be classified as one of the following: spam, unsolicited junk emails that we're all used to; phishing, emails sent to a target; spear phishing, phishing taken up a notch to target specific individuals or organization. Whaling is to spearfish somebody like Elon Musk, for example, or something like that. CFOs, CEOs, presidents, all of that. That would be whaling. Smishing, taking phishing to mobile devices by targeting mobile users with specially crafted text messages. For example, you might get a text saying that, hey, congratulations, you won this prize. Hey, thank you for paying your bill. Here's your reward. Something like that. I'm pretty sure everybody is getting those annoying text messages, and that is called smishing. Do not click on those because you will get smished, right? So phishing is similar to smishing, similarly annoying, and instead of using text messages, they use voice. It could be robots, it can be real humans sometimes, right? For example, you get a phone call, hey, this is Sally from the rewards department. Thank you so much for blah blah blah, right? You've got that same text, that same call. I did too. And unfortunately, people still fall for it, and that's why these scammers continue to keep on uh, going to the same bag of tricks. But now that we know what they mean, and now that we know not to engage in these type of practices, make sure that you don't buy any gift cards. Every time you hear gift cards, whatever it is, guys, please just don't fall for it. Educate your aunts, your uncles, your moms, your dads, your grandmas, your grandpas, your parents, everybody, friends, family, everybody. uh, Make sure you explain to them what spam, phishing, spear phishing, whaling, smishing, and phishing is, so they will be protected in the future. So these scammers have something else better to do. When it comes to phishing, the modus operandi is usually the same depending on the objective of the email. So, for example, the objective can be to harvest credentials, and another is to gain access to the computer. Below are typical characteristics phishing emails have in common. Sender email name or address will masquerade as a trusted entity, which is called email spoofing. I highly suggest you follow the link, get yourself educated in what email spoofing is. The email subject line is written with a sense of urgency or uses certain keywords such as invoice or suspended. For example, you have a low balance in your account, blah, blah, blah. Uh, your invoice of $524 from Amazon has to be paid within 24 hours. The email body is designed to match a trusting entity, Amazon, Netflix, you name it, a banking institution. The email body is poorly formatted or written. Um, Bank of America could be spelled Bank of America with a K, for example. Stuff like that. Email body uses generic content such as "Dear Sir," "Dear Madam," so it's not specifically to you. So, say your name is Joshua. I wouldn't say, "Hey Joshua, we received your payment. Thank you very much." It would say, "Dear Sir, thank you for your payment," and payment may be spelled with uh, NNNT, for example. You would find these types of errors in phishing emails. Hyperlinks. Oftentimes, the use of URL shortening services uh, is present within these emails, or they have malicious attachments, such as, like we saw, it was a benign PDF in our case, but it could have been malware. Uh, Reminder: when dealing with hyperlinks and attachments, you need to be careful not to accidentally click on the hyperlink or attachments. This is where hyperlinks and IP addresses can be defamed. Again, I highly encourage you to read all these resources for these rooms. They're very important for you to understand the concepts. So, analyze the email titled email3.eml within the virtual machine and answer the questions below. So, without further ado, okay, so let's jump back into this window right here. So that was the previous flag. We don't need that anymore. We might need Cyber Chef. So let's do some easy pickings right here. Let's clear the screen here because we're gonna enter. We're gonna play with this email right here. So let's see what we have here. We already see the return path as support at techbeat.com. So sender's email would be support at techbeat.com, right? Let's see what else do we find in this email that would be interesting for us. We see that domain a ton of times here. Let's see if there's a HTTP link. What do you know? We do have an HTTP link in there. I did not want to do that. So we're going to copy this bad boy right here. It is a very long line of text. Okay, how about I just do this? Copy what I don't need also. We're going into CyberChef. Clear recipe, right? So you start from scratch, delete this, paste our selection, delete this. So this is how we defang an HTTP link and make it harmless. So defang URL, drag and drop, bam. Here is your other flag. So what does defanging do? Well, it replaces, instead of HTTP, you have HXXP, and it puts bracket around the dots, so it makes it a totally harmless HTTP link that can be analyzed by you, by your peers, so on and so forth. This was another one of our flags here. What is the subject line? We can solve that one too. So we're going to escape this right here, and we are looking for our subject line here within this email, and our subject line will be to reply to subject, right? So this would be the subject line, right? Am I correct? Let's see. So we do have here in our recipe from base 64, right? And we are pasting the subject line. So what we have to do now here is to delete the UTF-8 part of the subject line, and this is it. Right here. Actually, it ends with 2 equal signs. So order place, your order ID, OD2, blah, 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 was successfully placed. So that was our flag right here in the subject line. If you look at it right there, that's the body, and that's the subject line that we needed. Up next, we did get that. We did defang. So what trusted entity is this email masquerading as? So let's open this email once again to see if we have anything. Oh, this is the test that we opened. Okay, yeah, this is it. So received from, return path that we talked about, received SPS, and it was a pass. Oddly enough, apparently this techb.com gets a pass. We'll talk about SPF later. So there's nothing out of the ordinary here. What we can do is, yeah, apparently we have to go into Thunderbird. ls, what was the email 3.eml? So Thunderbird is your email client in Linux. What was it? Email 3.eml. And it is going to open this email in Thunderbird here. So let's look at what we have here from, thank you, Home Depot. But it's not Home Depot at homedepot.com, it's support at techb.com. So this is a perfect example for a phishing email, right? It even has like the click here, you owe us money type of deal, right? So this is your phishing email. Order placed. Typically, they will have some type of money here. Home Depot thanks you for your services. Blah blah blah. This probably won't be here, uh, and it's gonna have probably like the Home Depot logo and everything, right? So they will try to impersonate Home Depot. But if you look at the email here, it's support at techbee.com. We'll probably get into who is techbee.com later, so on and so forth. But for right now, these were the flags for tasks number 6, right? So, in conclusion, uh, we should know what BEC stands for, which is Business Email Compromise. A BEC is when an adversary gains control of an internal employee's account and then uses the compromised email account to convince other internal employees to perform unauthorized or fraudulent actions. You should be familiar with this term. I've heard this question asked before in a job interview. Business email compromise. Okay? So, this is phishing emails room number 1. I hope I did not exhaust you too much. If you find this room helpful, or if you find the information was of value to you, let me know so I can make phishing emails 2, 3, 4, and 5. I think there's 5 total, right? Right. Alrighty, that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching.